Hurricane Florence remains a Category 4 hurricane. I'm meteorologist Jordan Young. There has been some changes in Florence's structure. You notice here in the satellite imagery that there's some dry air trying to wrap itself in, so there may be some weakening over the next few hours, but that is expected to die off. Overall, we expect Florence to continue to strengthen and remain a strong Category 4 storm. It could reach Category 5 status briefly, but at landfall we are expecting a slightly weaker but still a Category 3 or Category 4 storm at landfall. But there's some questions now about the landfall exactly. Where will Florence make landfall at? Will it make landfall or stall just short and then kind of drift there? Those are some questions that have developed in the computer models. So I'm going to switch over to one of my computer models here, and this shows the current situation with Hurricane Florence in the Atlantic Ocean. And notice this ridge of high pressure that is located just to the north of Florence. That's preventing the storm from moving off towards the north and the east and away from us. And you notice that there's an area of low pressure back across the west coast. Now as I put this into motion, notice how that area of low pressure continues to strengthen along the west coast, and notice how this area of high pressure continues to build up, and then notice how the area of high pressure really stops influencing Florence. So that means Florence will try to stall out. There won't be much in the way of any air movement, so therefore there will be nothing to push Florence to any direction. So therefore Florence could stall out. Now the question is where. We originally thought that that was going to happen somewhere inland. Well, now some of the guys are suggesting that may happen right on the coast or just off the coast, which would be very catastrophic if that were to happen. But notice how this high pressure, it's just like a brick wall that has built itself right across the middle of the country, and then to the east that high pressure extends and it's just trapped Florence right there along the Carolina coast. So we'll go back and look at the GFS ensemble and notice how it has the track of the storm moving up and making landfall. This is the 12Z run of the GFS computer model, and you notice there is a spread anywhere from roughly Morehead City down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Now the European computer model kind of stalls this storm just south of Wilmington, just off the coast of North Carolina, and then kind of meanders the system around before finally making landfall somewhere in South Carolina. So there are more questions right now than answers on the exact track. The spaghetti plots don't help to really solve this problem, as many of them are still taking the storm just north of Wilmington into the coastal areas. And then as we look at the forecast wind speeds, we do see some strengthening over the next 12 to 24 hours before some general weakening as it begins to move a little bit closer to land. The water temperature not quite as warm, and the depth of that warm water is not quite as great. There may be a little bit more wind shear and also some interactions with the land. That will all kind of weaken Florence a little bit, but that's still a very strong Category 4 hurricane. Notice those winds anywhere from 130 to 140 miles per hour. So this is still a storm that does not need to be messed with. That's why hurricane warnings have been issued for much of the North Carolina and parts of the South Carolina coast in anticipation. This is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, and right now the track is for the storm to make landfall just north of Wilmington. Now this of course is subject to change. Notice that cone of uncertainty now stretches almost down to the South Carolina-Georgia border again. There, like I said, there are questions on whether this storm will stall out before moving inland, and those will need to be monitored moving forward. But right now the storm is moving to the west-northwest at 17 miles per hour, and that's expected to continue for the next 48 hours. Tropical storm force winds remain likely across much of eastern and North Carolina, and hurricane force winds are also becoming increasingly likely across the southeastern part of North Carolina. This storm is a very complex storm. What makes the forecast difficult is the expected stall. That is very difficult to forecast, and we are continuing to monitor that situation. I will continue to keep you updated with all the latest model trends on WXJordan.com. Thank you. I'm meteorologist Jordan Young.